The face of a royal suspect, Andrew, sped away from a police station tonight, but still under investigation. The former prince was released from custody after a dramatic day which plunged the royal family into its deepest crisis in modern history. Shortly after 8 p.m, Andrew swept back into Sandringham on a day which began with plainclothes police officers arriving there to arrest him on suspicion of misconduct in public office, while more officers arrived to search his former home in Windsor.
Your Majesty, how are you feeling after your brother's arrest?
None of the royal family knew in advance. The King issued a statement to say he learned of the news with deepest concern. Well, the eighth in line to the throne may be home tonight, but already that image will be seared into history. On News at 10, we'll bring you all the detail of the day, assess the fallout from this historic moment and what it means for the monarchy, including from lauded prince to a police cell, Paul charts the downfall and humiliation of Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor.
An unprecedented arrest in Great Britain this morning.
Shockwaves in America and around the world. President Trump gives his response.
I think it's a shame. I think it's very sad. I think it's so bad for the royal family. It's very, very sad.
While the brother of Virginia Giuffre speaks to Dan.
When you have somebody of somebody's esteem that Andrew was, this really sets a tone for what's to come next. And we're really hoping that the dominoes, and this is the tipping point.
And in other news tonight, the British couple jailed in Iran sentenced to 10 years. The husband speaks to Rohit.
From Buckingham Palace, this is ITV News at 10 with Julie Etchingham.
Good evening from Buckingham Palace, the seat of monarchy where 66 years ago today a prince of the realm was born, Andrew, younger brother to Charles, then the heir to the throne. Today, King Charles found out when the rest of us did that Andrew had been arrested at Sandringham. Until he was released this evening, still under investigation, Mr. Mountbatten-Windsor had spent his birthday being questioned by the police. He's suspected of misconduct in public office by sharing confidential information with Jeffrey Epstein, while the UK's Special Representative for International Trade and Investment. It's hard to overestimate just how damaging this is to the monarchy. There has been nothing like it for centuries. The last time a member of the royal family was arrested was the first King Charles for treason in 1647. The present King Charles avoided questions in public but put out a statement today as monarch, not brother. "Let me state clearly," he wrote, "the law must take its course."
The shutters of a garage door rolled up at the back of a police station this evening in a small Norfolk town. Two cars drove out of the gates. In the back of one of them, behind the tinted windows, was, it transpired, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. And this is how we know. A photographer caught what will become an iconic image of the one-time prince on his 66th birthday. Looking much like a deer in the headlights, seemingly reclined to position himself out of view of the cameras, but evidently without success. It is one single photograph that encapsulates what has happened to this former Duke and younger brother of King Charles. Within the hour, in the darkness of the Sandringham estate, the same car drove at speed into his home at Wood Farm. He's been released by police but remains under investigation. The day ended in a dramatic manner, and it started in one too, when on the King's Norfolk estate, unmarked police cars drove along the track to Andrew's home. At breakfast time, they arrived unannounced. Andrew wasn't expecting it, nor was the King told that his younger brother was about to be arrested. In the end, Andrew spent the best part of 10 hours in police custody, questioned on suspicion of misconduct in public office. At the same time, Thames Valley Police said they were searching addresses here in Norfolk and in Berkshire. At Royal Lodge in Windsor, where Andrew had been living until the start of this month, black vans were filmed entering the grounds earlier today. At midday, the first response from Buckingham Palace, and the statement was signed Charles R., meaning this was from the King himself. He spoke of how he had learned with the deepest concern of his brother's arrest and insisted a full, fair and proper process should follow in terms of the investigation. The King repeated he was ready to fully cooperate with the police, and then in the starkest way possible he wrote, "Let me state clearly, the law must take its course." And this afternoon, just as he pledged he would, the King continued with his public engagements.
Do you have any reaction to the arrest of your brother, sir? Your Majesty, how are you feeling after your brother's arrest?
Today's diary did not change, but the questions on his arrival did.
Have you spoken to your brother, Your Majesty?
He had all his senior staff with him. He knows, just as they know, what a precarious moment this is. As for another of Queen Elizabeth's children, Princess Anne, her diary today included a visit to a prison. She didn't cancel it.
What's your reaction to your brother's arrest, Your Royal Highness?
Like her brother, she heard the question but didn't respond. So why did police launch a criminal investigation? It followed an assessment of the most recently released Epstein files made public by the US Department of Justice. Those files appeared to show emails from the then Prince Andrew to Jeffrey Epstein at around the time they were photographed in Central Park in New York. Police are investigating if confidential papers about business opportunities were shared by the then Prince and if that amounts to misconduct in public office. At the time, Andrew was a trade ambassador on behalf of the British government, a role which would have given him access to sensitive and confidential documents. The arrest is not connected to claims made by Andrew's accuser, the late Virginia Giuffre. Nor was it the result of new claims a woman was trafficked to Andrew for sex in 2010. Police are still assessing those. After the arrest, a response from the Foreign Secretary, who told ITV News in New York the police must be allowed to do their work.
There is a police investigation underway, and it is immensely important that that investigation can take its course. As the Prime Minister has said, no one is above the law.
The King may not have been told in advance of his brother's arrest, but any sensible analysis of the situation would have indicated this day might come, and it leaves the royal family wounded.
They're supposed to stand for probity, they're supposed to stand for stability, and instead, whatever anybody has done or hasn't done, what you're not seeing is accountability in any voluntary way.
This is a seismic moment for monarchy. King Charles said today his family will continue in our duty and service to you all. Continuing as normal might be the ambition, it will be very hard to achieve in practice. Chris Ship, News at 10.
Well, Sandringham, the royal family's private estate, was supposed to provide Andrew with a quieter, lower-profile bolt hole after Windsor, following his dismissal from public life. But this morning, it was pushed into the spotlight, and this evening, as we saw, its entrance was illuminated with the flashlights of dozens of cameras. Well, Neil has spent the day there watching the comings and goings, plenty of them there have been. Andrew is back there tonight, Neil. Just talk us through what you've seen.
Julie, a day of extraordinary developments here at Sandringham. At 8:05 this evening, we filmed Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor as he returned here to Home Farm. As we know, he spent the day at Elsham Police Investigation Centre. It's about an hour's drive or so from where we are. And he was photographed, as we saw there at the beginning of Chris's report, leaving that police station on his way back to Home Farm. The events here this morning started in dramatic style around 8 o'clock when officers from Thames Valley Police, backed up by Norfolk Police, carried out this arrest on Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor and also took searches of evidence here from Home Farm as well. In terms of on the ground here, we've seen an increased media presence as the day has gone on, not just from the UK media, but from around the world as well. We are used to covering royal events here. One thinks of the family gathering at Christmas, for instance, but none of us can remember a day like this. Speaking to people in this community, there is a deep sense of respect and support for the royal family. Some people said to me they felt deep shock at what had happened. Some said they weren't surprised. But Julie, at the end of this day tonight, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor is about a quarter of a mile away from where I am, up this dark lane, inside Home Farm, no doubt pondering all of these events, wondering what's next.
Indeed. Neil, thank you very much indeed for that. Well, allegations of links between Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor and Jeffrey Epstein date back 2 decades. It's the ongoing release of millions of documents that has exposed Mr Mountbatten-Windsor to scrutiny of his behaviour and brought about his downfall. 6 months ago, the depths of that downfall, though, would have been impossible to imagine.
These and P's are all in the green. Fuel is sufficient at 500 kilograms.
From fighting in the Falklands to fighting for his freedom, how did Andrew fall quite so far from prince to police suspect?
He's also known as Action Man 2.
During his youth in the military, he had a glowing royal reputation. Now a criminal one is a possibility. His arrest relates specifically to his time as trade envoy and whether he abused his position for his own gain. That is separate to any accusations about the abuse of women in association with Jeffrey Epstein. It was this photo with Virginia Giuffre which created a very different royal image, hardly improved by the Newsnight interview that followed.
Do you remember her?
No. I have no recollection of ever meeting her.
But after eventually settling out of court with Giuffre, still Andrew retained a place at Queen Elizabeth's side, though stripped of some of his titles. Last year, his brother removed the rest, as well as his home at Royal Lodge.
This is just an extraordinary fall from grace. Here was the man that was born into wealth and privilege, a Royal Naval officer, decorated, and now he's been languishing in a police station all day today on his 66th birthday, answering questions.
And even the sight of today's police presence does not do justice to the scale of this scandal. So far, the investigation into the Epstein files has drawn in 10 police forces and agencies. It was Thames Valley Police who made the arrest today over claims of misconduct in a public office. They're also assessing separate claims that a woman was trafficked to have sex with Andrew. Norfolk Police, which covers Sandringham, says it's reviewing documents in the Epstein files, while the Met Police are looking into Andrew's close protection officers, as well as investigating claims about Lord Mandelson. They're being supported by Wiltshire Police. Essex, Bedfordshire and West Midlands are all looking into private flights chartered by Epstein through their airports in their areas, while Surrey is seeking information about an allegation of human trafficking and sexual assault in the mid-90s. All forces are being coordinated by the National Police Chiefs Council and the National Crime Agency. No serving officer will ever have interrogated a royal before.
They could have invited Andrew in for an interview. They could have done it by a solicitor, but they chose not to. They chose to make the arrest. It then gives them the power to search the property he was in Sandringham, but all the other properties that are connected with him. So they'll be seeking computer equipment, laptops, mobiles.
If Andrew's charged, if he's found guilty, having spent most of his life as His Royal Highness, he could spend the rest in the depths of prison. Paul Brand, News at 10.
Well, I'm joined now by Chris to discuss what has been an extraordinary day by any measure. And I suppose the leaping off point for our conversation needs to be that remarkable image.
Yes, I mean, we've seen it a couple of times already in this programme. It's probably worth just having a look at it again. I mean, photographers always try and get this kind of photograph when vans or cars come in and out of buildings. It was a chap called Phil Noble from Reuters who took this image tonight. And, you know, nothing else really sums up his fall from grace more than this particular photo. And, of course, he is released, still under investigation. And we're talking here about just one criminal investigation. As Paul was just saying there, there's all these other assessments going on as a result of information that have come out of the Epstein files. And, you know, it just struck me when you said it at the top, and I've heard it a few times today, the last time a senior royal was arrested was King Charles I in the middle of the 1600s. I mean, it does, you know, it makes you sort of stop and think about the historic nature of today. What does the palace do now? Well, look, they've weathered storms and shocks before, abdication crises, death of Princess Diana, Harry and Meghan accusing them of racism. They will get through this, but this is a really important moment, a moment of jeopardy for British monarchy.
OK, I know we'll come back to you a bit later on in the programme, Chris, for the moment. Thank you very much indeed for that. Well, the arrest of Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor has been headline news not just here, but around the world, nowhere more so than in the United States, home to many of Jeffrey Epstein's victims. Today, the brother of the late Virginia Giuffre told us he would not stop campaigning until justice is done. President Trump, a known fan of the British monarchy, called it bad for the royal family and very sad.
As news of Andrew's arrest broke in America, President Trump was heading to a rally in Georgia, where he hoped to steer the narrative back to the economy. But it didn't take long for him to face questions about his least favourite subject.
Do you think people in this country at some point, associates of Jeffrey Epstein, will wind up in handcuffs too?
Quickly deflecting them away from his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
Well, I'm the expert in a way because I've been totally exonerated. That's very nice. I can actually speak about it very nicely. I think it's a shame. I think it's very sad. I think it's so bad for the royal family. It's a very, very sad. To me, it's a very sad thing.
Andrew is the first person detained since Ghislaine Maxwell in connection with Jeffrey Epstein.
I respectfully decline to answer this question.
Earlier this month, she refused to answer any questions from members of Congress. While Andrew's arrest is not connected with her conviction for sex trafficking, the two were close friends. Andrew's always denied knowing about Epstein's crime and even claims this photo with Virginia Roberts Giuffre was fake. Today, her family welcomed his arrest on suspicion of misconduct in public office.
Him being arrested may not have been for the direct reason of sexual assault or for my sister, but we have to acknowledge that we wouldn't be at this stage without my sister and the brave survivors that are coming forward. And we will keep going. We will not stop until justice is served.
This is the very first thread that we can begin to really pull that is going to unravel everything else.
We know she's watching from above and just, she's dancing today.
No one is above the law.
Rena O, another Epstein survivor, says the UK is leading where America should follow.
The UK is doing a much better job. They're being more proactive and, they're taking action, immediate action. Whereas here in the US, they're just avoiding accountability.
One member of Congress who has been leading calls for Andrew to testify before his committee probing Epstein's crimes has renewed his demand for the royal family to cooperate.
I'll come to London if he wants. I'll come wherever he wants. But my concern is that he keeps hiding from us.
Do you think the king needs to instruct his brother to cooperate with your committee?
I would want the king to instruct his brother to cooperate. I would want everyone around Andrew to instruct him to cooperate with us because it's the right thing to do.
Will you raise your right hands for me, please? Do you solemnly declare?
One of Epstein's closest associates has already agreed to speak to the House Oversight Committee. Les Wexner, the billionaire owner of Victoria's Secret, was forced to answer questions for hours, a process with which Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor has so far refused to engage. But despite Congress's best efforts, the Department of Justice has so far questioned no one since the release of the Epstein files. In fact, the only notable development there tonight is this new poster of President Trump hung on the building of a supposedly independent legal authority.
Well, Dan joins us from Washington tonight, and I suppose it's striking to note that there's been such significant police activity here in the UK since the release of the Epstein files, but very little in comparison in the US.
Yeah, I think many of the survivors and their families find it bewildering, frankly, that there's just nothing appears to be going on here in terms of an investigation. There have been no arrests made. I mean, we've had this, almost 3 million documents painting this sort of intimate portrait of Jeffrey Epstein's life and crimes, and yet nothing seems to be going on in terms of arrests or investigation whatsoever. The DOJ Department of Justice still hasn't even met many of the survivors and their families. And I think President Trump has made it clear that he wants the country to move on. He set that tone, if you like, Julie, at the very top, and that tone is being enacted to the letter by his Attorney General, Pam Bondi. And I think many people will point out, well, there are actually still more than 2 million documents that still have not been released, and many of the survivors say that this is the Department of Justice really withholding evidence which should be released to get to the truth.
OK, Dan, thank you very much indeed for that, and we'll have more on Andrew's arrest at the end of the programme. But first, though, to some of the day's other news, and a British couple who have already spent 13 months behind bars in Iran, where they were arrested for spying during a round-the-world motorbike trip, have been told they'll spend another 10 years locked up. Lindsay and Craig Foreman are hoping and praying they won't have to serve the full sentence, and say it's time for our government to help.
Well, we are in, and now we are saying goodbye to the bike.
They arrived in Iran just over a year ago. Now their future has been decided by a judge. Craig and Lindsay Foreman have just learned they've been sentenced to 10 years in jail, accused of being spies, charges they deny.
Hi Craig, how are you doing?
When Craig spoke to me over the phone from prison at the weekend, he appealed for more support.
What would you say then to the British government?
Well, one word would be help. Full stop. Just help, you know. I don't understand why we have still been here for 13 months being held hostage in 2026. In what day and age does this feel? When does this end?
Last night, a phone call to his family from the Foreign Office confirmed the severe sentence.
Devastating to begin with. I mean, it was a very weird thing to try and get your head round. You know, it's a long time. The fact that they're innocent of being charged with a crime.
After 13 months in prison, the stakes are rising, driven by the growing prospect of American military action against Iran and the fear that Craig and Lindsay could be used as leverage.
Well, this sentence is completely appalling and totally unjustifiable. That is why we will continue to intensely press the Iranian regime.
The most pitiful, depressing moment I think I've ever experienced.
Last week, speaking to me from prison, Lindsay said their only offence had been naivety, choosing to pass through Iran during their round-the-world motorcycle journey. At times since then, they've been held in solitary confinement.
57 days in solitary, emotionally, physically broke me to pieces. Thrown in an 8-foot cell with a hole in the floor. I was weeping and crying many nights, many days. It's quite a hard task to put into words.
He's now being held just a few yards from his wife, the promise of occasional visits used as a tool by the guards.
The ironic thing, I know her prison is 70 metres away, and I get to see her once a month. For me and for Lindsay, seeing each other on a regular basis is pretty much the only thing that's keeping us going right now.
They will both appear before a judge in Tehran this week, but their future may be shaped by events far beyond the courtroom. Rohit Khatru, News at 10.
Well, the sentencing of Mr. and Mrs. Foreman is set against an increasingly tense backdrop of threats to Iran from President Trump. He said he hopes to use his well-worn phrase to make a deal in probably the next 10 days on Iran's nuclear programme. Otherwise, he said, bad things happen. Robert joins us now from Washington. To give us any sense, we've seen this build-up of military force in the region, how imminent US action might be. Robert, what's your assessment?
Well, to be clear, I mean, US-Iranian negotiations are still underway, most recently brokered by the Omanis in Geneva at the weekend. And some progress is being reported on the sort of nuclear front. But on the other hand, there's no suggestion that Iran is prepared to make concessions to its ballistic missile program, which is a key demand of the Americans and the Israelis. And all the time, this immense US military buildup is continuing. There are 2 carrier strike groups now in the region. There's immense air power deployed. This is being described as the largest concentration of US forces in the region since 2003. and the beginning of the Iraq war. And just today, Donald Trump has given himself something of a timeline, saying he'll decide in the next 10 to 15 days whether he will order a strike on Iran.
And we do have some work to do with Iran. They can't have a nuclear weapon. It's very simple. You can't have peace in the Middle East if they have a nuclear weapon. And they can't have a nuclear weapon. And they've been told that very strongly.
Well, the irony is immense. Of course, this is the leader who said he would get America out of forever wars in the Middle East. And just today, he was hosting the inaugural meeting of the Board of Peace, which is set to sort of begin the reconstruction of Gaza. So America has got this incredible split-screen moment of talking peace in the Middle East while also preparing for war. And it must be said, look, alarmingly to his critics, there's no congressional authorization and no real national conversation about what might be the sort of mission objectives of a war in Iran. So a lot of jeopardy in this, what is the biggest decision of his presidency.
Robert, thank you very much indeed for that. Now, many education experts and the Children's Commissioner herself accept that the system of support for those with special educational needs and disabilities in England needs to change. The government's reforms are due to be outlined on Monday. A leak of those plans suggests the highest level of support will be restricted to children with the greatest needs. There'll be a new lower level of support for those with a wider range of needs, including autism and ADHD, which all means reassessments for every child.
We first met Lucas, who has autism and ADHD, 2 years ago. He'd been permanently excluded from primary school in Bradford at the age of 5. He'd lashed out at a teacher.
The head teacher said that the teachers are too scared to return to work while Lucas is there. I thought it was ridiculous. He's a 5-year-old.
2 years on, Lucas is now attending school for a few hours a day. He has an education, health and care plan in EHCP, setting out his legal rights to support. But Mum Jo is worried about proposed reforms which could erode his rights.
Getting rid of the EHCPs, that is like their protection. If Lucas didn't have an EHCP now, he would have probably been through about 6 schools, like expelled, just for behaviour, which he can't help.
The number of kids with EHCPs has ballooned, increasing by 166% since 2015 to more than 600,000. From 2030, children will have their needs reassessed at the age of 11. EHCPs will be reserved only for children with the most complex needs, while pupils with diagnoses of autism and ADHD are thought to be among those who could be moved to a new tiered system of support. 5-year-old Theo has severe autism. For Mum Katisha, it's been a battle every step of the way to get help. She's sceptical of the proposed changes.
I think they need to fix the system that they already have instead of trying to worsen it, because these children, they need help. They need help and they are suffering, and I don't understand why it has to get to a point of crisis before people listen. I'm tired of fighting. I'm tired.
But the government insists it's building a better system for all families.
No changes will be done before 2030, but ultimately any changes are done with children at the heart of this to ensure that they get the right support and the right needs for them. Because, again, there isn't a one-size-fits-all policy here.
And the long-delayed Send White Paper could come as soon as Monday, with a focus on making mainstream schools more inclusive. This Lincolnshire primary has seen demand rapidly increase.
It is really difficult meeting the needs of all these children with these complex needs. External provisions that will help those children can be really frustrating because it's often time-consuming getting that support.
These reforms will be controversial, with intense debate on the right way forward. Sarah Corker, News at 10.
Well, from a seemingly hopeless position last night at the Winter Olympics, Team GB's men's curlers have actually reached the final, guaranteeing them at least a silver medal. They seized the semi-final lifeline. They were thrown by other results going their way and beat Switzerland tonight 8-5. The women's team, though, didn't reach the semi-finals after all. Now let's return to the arrest of Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, and the palace here has stood as a symbol of the longevity of an institution which has suffered but managed to survive past scandals. Today, its foundations have been shaken as never before in the biggest royal crisis anyone can remember.
The monarchy has weathered scandals before, but Andrew's arrest has plunged it into a new crisis, a defining test for the king to contain the fallout and safeguard the future of the crown.
King Edward VII has ceased to reign over Great Britain and the British Empire.
History shows a pattern when royal controversy strikes. In 1936, the abdication of Edward VIII became a constitutional crisis. The royal family acted decisively, keeping Edward and Wallis Simpson out of Britain, drawing a firm line to protect the institution. After Diana's death, public anger forced a change of tone. The late Queen addressed the nation.
I want to pay tribute to Diana myself.
Eventually acknowledging the mood and steadying the institution. And in 2020, Harry's departure exposed deep family divisions, managed but never fully resolved.
This is a crisis like no other. To have a member of the royal family, yes, not a working royal, but the King's brother arrested is quite remarkable and something that we've never seen before.
Now with fresh developments, scrutiny is intensifying. MPs once cautious have been speaking out, with calls to remove titles, questions about Andrew's residence, even suggestions of parliamentary scrutiny, all reflecting a wider shift, a public less deferential and more demanding of accountability. The pressure is visible. Prince William facing questions during a visit to Saudi Arabia.
To what extent do you think the royal family has done enough around the Andrew and Epstein issue?
The King heckled on a walkabout.
Charles, how long have you known about Andrew and Epstein?
Everything they now do is going to be overshadowed by Prince Andrew, and I think at the very least we can expect over time that we are going to have to see, and there will be calls for greater transparency in the institution of monarchy, a public institution that has been shrouded in secrecy for so long.
For the royal family, this is the biggest test in generations, raising profound questions for both Andrew and the monarchy. Sejal Karia, News at 10.
Well, as you'd expect, tomorrow's front pages are dominated by news of Andrew's arrest and that photograph. The headline in the Daily Mail is a simple one. It has one word: downfall. The Express quotes the King's statement that the law must take its course. The Eye has a similar headline and says Mr. Mountbatten-Windsor was detained on his 66th birthday. And The Sun references Andrew's claim that he can't sweat, with the headline, "Now he's sweating." That is quite a collection of the headlines for the royal family to consider. Chris is here to really sum up what we've seen today, and I suppose, you know, a grimmer set of headlines. Hard to imagine, really.
Yeah, I mean, no surprise whatsoever that literally every single newspaper that I've seen tomorrow morning has got that photograph. I mean, how do you sum up a day like today? When you list everything that has happened, breakfast arrest for Andrew, he didn't know it was coming, the King didn't know it was coming, a statement from the King saying my brother's not above the law, him being interviewed in a police station, and then that photo as he was released tonight. And all on his 66th birthday. I mean, it's very hard in one news programme, really, to sum up the magnitude of today.
I mean, we saw various senior members of the royal family out and about today, sticking to their duties. But it really, I mean, it sort of can't be business as usual after this. And this could go on for such a long time.
No, and it hasn't been business as usual for a little while. Today is obviously the peak, the crescendo. And do you know what? I've stood here talking to you on a number of occasions over the past decade or so about crises or problems for the royal family. This is right up there as, you know, among the most serious, because it's out of the palace's control. What happens next is down to the police, and the King has said to them, you must do what you need to do in terms of the investigation. But you have to acknowledge the King did everything that he could possibly do, perhaps that his mother didn't do previously, and the job that he thinks is just to keep serving as he sees it. And if he didn't turn up today at an event or tomorrow, then people will be disappointed. He's going to keep doing what he does. But, as you say, I mean, it's going to be seen through the prism of this for some time.
OK, Chris, thank you very much indeed for all of that. That's where we end tonight, the day a man born a prince became a police suspect. Join Kate and Ranveer from 6 with Good Morning Britain. I'll see you again tomorrow from Buckingham Palace. Good night.